Hey friends, welcome back to another video. I'm here with a very special guest. His name is Christopher Gully. He is the Vice President of Communications at the Canadian Nuclear Association. Chris, thanks so much for being here and actually inviting me to be here at the CNA this year.
I mean, it's my absolute pleasure to speak to you, and it's been great having you here. I know you've had a lot of interesting conversations, and hopefully we can have one here today, us too.
I think this is going to be the most interesting conversation. So, Chris, tell us about your background. What got you into the CNA, and what are you excited for in this renaissance of nuclear?
I mean, I'm new to nuclear. Let's be honest, right? I've been in nuclear about 2 years now. Compared to a lot of people here around us at the conference, they've been here for 20, 30 years in some cases. And I think I'm also extremely fortunate. I joined nuclear at a time of great momentum, great growth, great promise. A lot of my colleagues have been through some difficult times, in nuclear, and now's an exciting time. So, I'm very fortunate to have joined. But at the same time, I made that decision because, a lot of us could see this coming, right? I spent the better part of the last 10 years in Paris at the International Energy Agency, not to be confused with the International Atomic Energy Agency, where, I was working on the full breadth of energy system fuels and technologies. And the IEA is a group that really believes that the only way to ensure that we succeed in the clean energy transition is by taking advantage of every single tool in the toolbox. And so while some groups, some countries had written off nuclear and thought that the end was near, at the IEA, we continue to see that the data shows that nuclear is necessary. Barring some major technological advancements in battery storage, for example, or CCUS really panning out, which doesn't seem to be likely. Nuclear is necessary, and so when I saw the opportunity to join this industry, I jumped at it, and it's been a really fun ride so far.
That's phenomenal, and I love how you're bringing the expertise of an organization like the IEA. That's phenomenal because you're able to see things from a holistic perspective, right? It's not only nuclear is the best, which is kind of been my motto, but it's actually we need all these energy sources to work together, right? So, like for example, I was looking at the country of Ghana, and they were looking at embracing large nuclear power reactors, and so it didn't really make sense for that nation to get 90% of its electricity from two nuclear power reactors. That doesn't make a stable grid.
Right. When you hear some people say we need all of the above, the assumption is they're saying it for very selfish reasons, right? Maybe they represent an industry that thinks that it doesn't have a future, and so they're saying all of the above because they just want to make sure they don't disappear. And I think in some cases that might be true, right? But when I say all of the above, it's about risk mitigation. It's about ensuring that your energy system can continue to be reliable, stable, affordable, no matter what happens. Because frankly, crises happen and they cannot be predicted. That can be a micro crisis like, changes in the weather patterns, and that influences our decisions on variable renewables versus baseload power, for example. But it can be a macro crisis, like the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, right? Unforeseen in many ways, at least in terms of timing, that had major impacts on the global energy system. Europe faced a very cold winter due to the cutoff of natural gas from Russia. And granted, it took steps, imports of LNG and conservation measures and so on to ensure that it could weather that storm. But it wasn't easy and it wasn't cheap. And that invasion also had knock-on effects on nuclear. I mean, I think you could argue that long term, it spurred something of a, as you say, use the R word, renaissance for nuclear. But in the medium term, security of fuel supply for nuclear is very much an open question, because so much enriched fuel was coming from Russia, and so that could not have been foreseen. And so when I talk about all of the above, it's saying, listen, we don't know what's coming all the time. We have a goal, we have a path, but we have to assume it's going to be interrupted by something. And that interruption is not going to impact each energy source in the same way. And so if you have an energy system that is diverse, that relies on multiple different fuels, technologies, and therefore supply chains, then you can ensure that whatever crisis comes, you can manage it. And I think Canada's extremely fortunate, right? It's got hydro, it's got nuclear, it's got a growing renewables industry, and it's got the potential for abated fossil fuel consumption as well. And if we as a country put our money and our resources into this balanced, smart, pragmatic approach to building an energy system, then it will be very much to our benefit.
It's great to see that perspective that we together is better. I want to get your thoughts on new upcoming technologies and new fuel sources like hydrogen, hydrogen production. There's new innovative technologies even in renewables area. What are your thoughts on those?
There was something called there's an IEA report. Sorry, I go back to the IEA, called Tracking Clean Energy Progress, and what it showed was that on the way to net zero 2050, don't quote me on the number, but 30 to 40% of the technologies needed aren't yet on the market. They're still in research and development. This includes SMRs and advanced SMRs, right? But it also includes a lot of storage technologies. It includes things like abated fossil fuels and so on. We have to make sure we keep innovating and keep pursuing things. We definitely have to do that for nuclear, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be focusing on other things as well. We can't be criticizing other technologies for things that they can likely criticize us for as well. Like take hydrogen, for example. A lot of people will say hydrogen is a waste of time right now. It's never going to be economical. It's not going to pan out. That might be true. Let's be clear, that might be true. Certainly, in certain sectors like heating, for example, I personally don't think hydrogen has a chance. In freight, or in shipping, maybe it really does. In other industrial uses. But just because there's no chance doesn't mean we shouldn't be exploring it, because there will be winners, there will be losers, but we don't know that until we can push forward. The same goes for SMRs. We have a lot of confidence in our industry, and I think we're going to see some great successes in SMRs in Canada. But that's nothing anyone can count on, right? And same goes for SMRs, same for hydrogen, same for CCUS. And if we put all of our eggs in one basket, if we focus only on one specific technology, if it fails for whatever reason, then it's not just the industry that fails. It's Canadians. It's ratepayers. Ultimately, it's also those politicians that hitch their wagon to one specific technology. And I think that's unfortunate. If I can say, it upsets me to see energy and energy technologies treated in a partisan way. Yeah. Being politicized, because ultimately electricity and energy are they're part of the public good. They are almost a human right. We are so lucky in Canada to have nonstop access to modern energy services. We're talking about 1.2 billion people in the world that don't have access to modern energy services. We have hundreds of millions who don't have access to clean cooking, relying on biomass. And so for us to then take this luxury that we have and politicize it and turn it into a tool for politics, really unfortunate. And so, what I would love to see is, let's just say the end goal, what we all want, is a clean grid, that's affordable, that is creating jobs, here in Canada. I believe nuclear is going to be a major part of that, but it's not going to only be nuclear. It's going to be other sectors as well, and we can all benefit.
Definitely. Being the VP of Communications for the CNA, what's your vision for the CNA and its communications program?
Sure. I mean, we ultimately, it's an interesting time for nuclear, right? Because there's a lot of momentum, but that also means there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of unanswered questions about who are the winners going to be, who are the losers going to be. And so what we continue to preach is cooperation, information sharing, making sure we're all on the same page, all heading toward the same goal. The pie is huge, right? We're talking about going to 2050, doubling, tripling electricity supply, not to mention, heat demand as well. There are going to be many winners. Nuclear is going to be a winner. I have no doubt about that. There are going to be other winners as well. So we need to make sure that we are winning together. Things like the investment tax credit, for example. Things like regulatory reform. This isn't something that nuclear has to do alone. This is something we should and are working on with partners in other industries, such as steel, such as cement, such as mining, but also other energy technologies, such as renewables, such as storage, such as hydrogen. And we're working on this together because we all share a common goal and we all realize that we can win. And so from a communications perspective, that means that our message is we're part of a team. We are Team Canada, right? We are not just saying we represent the nuclear industry, although we absolutely do, and the nuclear industry, we want it to succeed, but we believe that that success is built upon a foundation of cooperation, shared understanding of where we're all going together.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think bringing together the industry and having that unified vision that look internally, but also have an appreciation of what's also out there is phenomenal. And also, I love how you're talking about collaboration because here at the CNA, this is the definition of collaboration, right? The CNA conference this year, I've had a really fun time coming out every year, and it's great to see vendor partners, utilities, regulators come together in one area, communicate, converse with one another, do business, right? Because this is the best way to collaborate and do business face to face.
I mean, competition and cooperation are not opposites. You know, they are part of the same system. We work together so that we know how to compete in a way where we can all succeed, right? And I'm all for competition. That's how we deliver on something, at a competitive cost to the customer. Ultimately, I'm all for competition. But if we compete without understanding who our partners are and how we can work together, then we might make suboptimal choices, or that is, governments might make suboptimal choices. And we want to make sure that not only are we winning as an industry, but we're winning as a society as well.
Definitely. So, in terms of communications, where are your energies directed towards? Is it the general public? Is it government? Is it industry? Or is it a collection of all three? And how do you balance?
Frankly speaking, as the CNA, that is, the association itself, just the few of us that work at the CNA, we don't have the capacity to talk to the public, if I'm being honest, right? We don't have the money for big advertising campaigns. That's up to the big utilities, that's up to the large technology vendors. They do a great job with that. Our unique value is being the convener, is bringing those parties together to talk about how they will then talk to the public, to make sure that we are coming out with a consistent message. Because what we don't want is for the industry to be saying different things at different times to different people, right? We want to be unified in who we are and how we're approaching things. And we see that as our role as a CNA, is to get people in the same room, or the same building in the case of this conference, and make sure that we are all speaking the same language. So for us, communicating, our main audience is the industry itself. Certainly, government is a big part of that. That can be public communications. We want to make sure we know the newspapers that the ministers read. We want to make sure the messages are in there. A lot of it's private communications. It's just those behind the scenes meetings, letters, so on, that ultimately have long-term, very positive consequences for the industry. They don't get seen very much, but it takes up a lot of our time, and we're very happy to do it. It takes a lot of effort, honestly, to get, let's say, an op-ed in a major national newspaper. But we think we can spend a lot more time, a lot more strategically, making sure that we support our members to be the ones getting those messages out to all of our benefits.
Like the role of the CNA at this moment is pivotal, right? Like it's one of the most important roles because this is the time to unite and really like push stuff forward, right? Because the momentum has grown, right? And I think and it's good to accept that hey, an organization can't do it all,
Yes.
right?
And
And
if I may, then, I mean, I should call out, there's Canada Owners Group, there's Organization of Canadian Nuclear Industries, there's Canadian Nuclear Society. There are multiple groups out there, and we are not competitors. We are actively talking to each other, and we know, the unique value of each of these organizations and what they're bringing. And we are making sure that where we see opportunities for collaboration, we're chasing them. Where we see one group already doing something really well, hey, you know what? We're happy to take a step back. Because we don't want to waste anybody's time. We don't want to waste any of our member resources. And we're just really happy that there are all these different groups out here doing great work. And we just want to make sure that we keep working together as a team.
tell us a little bit about this year's CNA conference. It's we're coming to a wrap of this conference soon, and so exceptional speakers, panelists. Tell us about the highlights of this conference. How was it?
First things first, huge, right? I mean, the number of participants, absolutely massive. It's a good problem to have. We had a big waiting list, and I'm very sorry to anyone watching this video who wanted to be at the conference and couldn't be here. Rest assured, we will have a bigger venue next year. But we're just really excited by the number of people here. Our CEO and president, John Gorman, said something really interesting this morning on stage. He said, in his opening remarks, he said, "Welcome to day 3. Traditionally, this would be the beginning of the conference, but no, there have been days of events on the sidelines of CNA this year, and we only see this expanding. We will continue to put on our core programming, but what we're really excited about is the rest of the industry taking the opportunity during the week to come together and do their own events as well. We had the Nuclear Energy Agency from the OECD. They came here, did a full day event, which is something that has not happened before. We had the heads of the associations of the US, the UK, Nuclear Europe. They were also here. We had delegations from other countries, including Japan and some European nations. A very different feel at the conference this year that really reflects what's happening in the industry. We're very proud of this event. We're very, we're having a great time, and we just look forward to doing even more next year.
That's great. Yeah, I love how there's an international audience here, and even hearing from former Miss America,
Yeah.
who was here giving the keynote speech. That was phenomenal, right? Um, I love the initiatives that the CNA hosts, even outside of the CNA conference. I've been involved with Nuclear Hill Day. There's COP28. There was a panel that was a really great opportunity to share more about Canada's leadership in the industry that I was involved with. What are some of the other key initiatives that you're looking forward to driving with the CNA?
I mean, I'm going to be very selfish here and plug something we just launched yesterday, which is called Nuclear Jobs Canada. It's nuclearjobscanada.ca. You can go there, visit it right away. This is an online job board for nuclear jobs across our membership. You can go there and see hundreds of jobs already listed. And this is something that we launched because we saw a gap. And it's addressing, a coming need for the industry, which is how do we fulfill this talent gap between our ambitions of what we want to build and what we can build. And that's kind of a hint at what we're looking at the CNA is looking at what we're calling these enabling conditions for success. That can be HR and talent. It can be regulatory modernization. It can be waste management. It can be fuel supply. We have about 8 of these that we've defined. And we're putting together work streams on each of these enabling conditions, working with our members and those members that are most involved in each of them to make sure that we can deliver the best policy advice to policymakers, but also make sure that we are getting the right people together, because ultimately that is our real value, is convening, to make sure they all understand first the scope of the challenge, but that they're all on the same page in terms of what the solutions will be. And so this is going to be a big part of our focus moving forward. I think John Gorman said it this morning as well. We should be very proud of ourselves where we are as an industry today. But it would be hubris to suggest that this is the success, right? This is just us opening the door to the long road toward the real success, which is actually delivering on our promises. And that's not going to happen unless we address some very, very big questions and frankly, exciting questions to address. And so, we're looking forward to it. And we have, both events and policy work streams and communications campaigns and things such as Nuclear Jobs Canada that are in the pipeline and coming that we hope will contribute to addressing some of these challenges.
That's a really cool initiative, and I love it because whenever someone is new to the industry and asking me, "Hey, Osama, how do I apply for jobs?" and so I give them a list of the vendors and utilities. I'm like, "Hey, listen, like here's a list of 9 or 10 companies and check them out.
Yep.
Go on their websites and check out their pages or go on their LinkedIn's. But this is genius.
One place.
One place.
One place.
Nice. Where did this idea come from? And like, how did you guys come up with this idea?
I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to NWMO. Some of the HR colleagues from NWMO, they basically said to us at the Women in Nuclear conference last year, they said, "Hey, like, does anything like this exist? Has anybody talked about it?" And it was kind of a light bulb moment for us. It's like, wait a minute, like, how come this doesn't exist? This is crazy. Someone should have done it, and so we took it and we ran with it, and again, it's been 36 hours since launch, so I don't want to get too high on myself, but there's been great reception, and the students here at the conference seem really excited by it. So we're thrilled. I mean, we see something similar in the UK. They have Destination Nuclear, which is launching an online jobs program. And we see some in other countries, but there wasn't one specific to Canada. And ultimately, that's what we're most interested in, is making sure that when nuclear is built in Canada, it benefits all Canadians. And that's not just in terms of investment, that's in terms of jobs, and that's in terms of young people getting in. Because as you know, the nuclear workforce is a relatively aged workforce, yeah, right? And that has to change. And that has to change. So let's get in some young talent, some young, excited talent, because as you also may know, you look at public opinion polling, and young people in Canada are excited about nuclear. Yeah. Right? They are pro-nuclear, and for different reasons than the older people as well. And so, great. Let's get them into the industry, have this refresh of talent and enthusiasm, and make it their job to build out those reactors to 2050 and deliver on what is essentially their future.
That's a phenomenal vision, and one that I share. I think I think viewers here in this audience are generally from that young audience, and I think they would find your words really motivating, right, and inspiring. So uh, uh, so I think it was a pleasure having you on this chat, this podcast, and thanks again for this opportunity to host these discussions at the CNA conference. I think uh, those that are watching, this was a really good opportunity to sit down with leadership all in one spot, right, and just hear from them, right, and uh, yeah, just scheduling these outside of here would have been a nightmare. Would have been another challenge, as I'd like to say it positively. So it's great. Come out to CNA next year. I really recommend it for all those that are watching. It's definitely worth it. And as Christopher said, that next year there's going to be a bigger venue as well. So in the description below, you can find the link to the CNA, as well as the CNA conference, and the nuclear job board. And to end off, Christopher, is there any last message that you'd like to leave with the audience?
I just want to say thank you to you, because nuclear has had an image problem, and it's people like you who are coming out here and showing what it really means to be a young supporter of nuclear. I'm excited for what you're doing. I'd like to see more of it. If there are people in the audience who want to do something similar, I encourage them to get out there and do it. It's exciting. It's a great thing to be part of, and let's all do this together.